Hi everyone, Sharon here. Today I'm going to be painting my dog, Boston Terrier Diesel, in pastel. I'm using just the harder Prismacolor pastels. They're the new pastels. And I've taken out white and I clean it with a chamois, a leather chamois, and then I use some blues and a black. And also I'm taking out a bunch of my Derwent pastel pencils in beige, pink, different types of gray, indigo blue, and carbon black and white, but I usually use the white charcoal pencil. This is my Pesco 64 sharpener. I wanted to show it to you. It's an excellent sharpener for all sorts of pencils, even pastel. It sharpens perfectly every time, and you get a perfect point. If you ever break a lead off like I'm doing here to show you, it's very easy to take apart. You just unscrew the back of this thing and you can see the lead right where it's stuck, and you just take a little pointed object and pop it out, and there it is. And then I put the sharpener back together again. I think I paid $17 for this sharpener, and it has been my favorite for a long time. I heard about it from another artist. And here I'm just testing some colors, and I break off a piece of pastel because I don't need a long piece. I forgot to say in the beginning of the video where you see that gray, I used some acrylic Payne's gray and just put a light wash on it so that there wouldn't be a lot of pastel paper showing through. Now here I put some gray down in order to get the bend of the nose, the crease, just right, and then I go over it with my white charcoal pencil to give it some definition. And I'm adding in the eyebrows here by using some white, which he has. This mouth looks a little bit scary with this bright pink, but I go over it layer after layer to tone it down. Now I'm using a beige, like a flesh tone, and then I go over it with gray, then I go over it with some indigo, and then I go over it with the carbon black until I've built it up the way I like it. You can still see the pink through there when you look at it closely, just like you would see on his mouth if you looked at it closely. This was really difficult for me. This took me a long time, and I cut a lot of the video out because it gets real boring and very tedious going around the edge of his lips and mouth. He's got these blackened areas on parts of his lip like little birthmarks. And that thing you saw me using there was a silicone blender. This is probably one of the very few times you'll ever see me blending pastel. I hardly do it, but in this case it's kind of necessary. Now I'm building up on the mouth a little more, and I'm going to define his jaw and his lower lip separation. And now back over to the other ears. You can see I start with that heavy, deep pink. Then I go in with a lighter pink, and then a beige color, brown, and then I go in with some white and then blend it. And then I'm going in again with that flesh tone to get the colors the way I want, and then in with the black. The ears probably took me, I'd say I worked on the ears alone for an hour anyway. And then I go in, I was having a little trouble here being a lefty. I should have started on the right hand side and worked across so that my hand wasn't in the pastel. So I just had to balance myself. Here I'm putting in the little tendons and veins that you see inside a dog's ear. They kind of look wrinkly almost. So I needed to give it that 3D effect, and I added those in order to make the ears look more realistic. Basically, you just study the ear and every little detail. I just take pieces of the face and work on it a little bit at a time. I get distracted and bounce around a lot, but that's just my way of doing things. And now here I'm putting the eyes in, as you can see. I was worried about where I had the pupils set because his head is on an angle, so I was measuring them to make sure that I had them level. Otherwise, one eye would look larger than the other, and I didn't want that to happen. I'm putting the reflections in first here so I wouldn't lose them. I don't know if you saw that little note that I left. It was a flash in the pan, but I had a UPS delivery and I was all excited because I got some supplies that I needed. Those are the wrinkles that go under the chin, the face, and the neck that I was putting in, and then I went over it with white to tone it down, and I will continue to do that. I've cut a lot of it out, and the same with his chin here. This took a long time. He has these little pores with little bitty whiskers that pop out, so I was putting those on. That's what the dotting is. And now I will work on the nose. The nose was a little tricky because there's so much black there, but what I did was I used a color called charcoal graphite or something like that. So it was just slightly lighter in value than the black, so you could still see the nostrils. And then he had some shadowing or reflection, on that left-hand side of his nose. So I used some blue because the black appeared to be a little more blue-gray in tone. And I'm adding the reflections on the nose here, above and underneath the nostril. I made a little mistake, so I was just erasing that with my finger. And then I'll do it on the other side here where I see the other reflection, and now you can see the nostrils defined. And his upper lip has a lot of pink in it as well. So I use that deep pink. It's very scary at first. It looks horrible. But then I build on it, and here I'm using the graphite. And then I go back and forth with the black and the graphite, and then I added a little bit of that fleshy tone in order to bring the skin through again. And here I'm adding the fur in where it comes in and out of those areas. I wanted to have some lines there to give it definition. And then he's got these funny little lines of, I guess they're whisker follicles that come down along the sides. They also dot along, but I made them more in a line shape. It was easier to see. I had a lot of layer pastel there. And I'm just putting in the finishing touches of the white that comes across on that side of his face, here and there. And then I will go ahead and do it on the other side. You can barely see it over there because his face is turned. And it's not totally symmetrical in his markings either. And now I'm putting a little more of those follicles, hair follicles, in for his whiskers. Those are necessary in order to make it look more realistic. And then when I finish with that, I'll go ahead and I'll add the whiskers in. I'm looking at the photo, so that's why I'm going slow here. This is fast forwarded too, so it was really slow. So that side is in, and now I'm going to finish with the other side. And then I will go ahead and start on his collar. I used two different tones of red because there's a fold in the collar where it loops around the metal areas, and I wanted to give that some definition and darkness. So you can see here, I'm just finishing up the cloth part of the collar, and then I'll go in and do the metal areas of the collar. I use two different tones of gray because parts of his collar are plastic and another part is metal, so there's slightly different values of gray that I used to complete that. Plus it gives it better detail too. You can see the pieces a little bit better. And then I didn't show you the whole background, but that's it. Very simple background. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, everybody.